So these two titles, Architects Against Housing Alienation and Not for Sale, have something in common, which is that alienation means to exchange things. So we want to end a certain kind of rapid exchange of housing, and so the title Not for Sale reflects that. But I think the title Not for Sale and the idea of Architects Against Housing Alienation also ties together two important themes within this campaign, which are that one of the problems is capitalist exchange, and a second is the historic and ongoing legacy of colonialism in Canada. And so we're trying to link together Indigenous housing struggles and the deep problems with the Indigenous housing system in Canada, with the deep problems that exist within urban conditions and urban housing situations.
And I can say, as far as how we came together, the six of us came together thinking about the Venice Biennale as a possible opportunity. And each of us does some kind of work or research that's our overlaps really kind of land at housing, colonization, financialization. These are themes that connected us together, I think, as a group of six. And we were only interested really in the Biennale, I think, because we felt like it was an opportunity to really leverage something bigger that could happen after, that could build from what's happening with the pavilion. So I think we thought of this as a chance to really raise awareness around issues of housing with the broader public, to convince architects they could be part of a movement for change, and then to see where we could take it from here. How could the work that happens for this pavilion really go forward and become realized after the exhibition ends? So we see this as a campaign, and we see the exhibition as just one moment within a longer campaign that will keep going from here.
I mean, I think one of the things as Sara said, what we want to do is create a campaign. You can't create a campaign as an individual. It's not possible. And so I think by bringing a number of people with related ideas, but also different specializations together, we were able to create a set of ideas which we feel reflect a broader set of problems than we could individually. And so I think it was important to work collectively in order to try to jumpstart a movement or a campaign.
I think we were imagining the topic before we knew what her theme was. And then when we understood the theme, it was easy for us to connect some of our concepts to the things that she's describing in the laboratory for the future. So we really feel that it's foundational for our team, for our group, to think about reconciliation, to think about decolonization. So the team that begins our set of 10 demands is the Land Back team. I think thinking about how Land Back is foundational to understanding property, ownership, rights, etc., that's really important to the conversation of decolonization that's happening in Canada right now. And so I think that's a way that this pavilion contributes to that overall set of themes around colonization that's maybe in a slightly different perspective than you see from other parts of the world.
Yeah, I think also it's like a future-oriented laboratory in the sense that it's a working space, so it's a workshop in the way that Leslie Loco has talked about the biennial as a kind of a workshop. And we have demands, so we're demanding something that will happen and has not yet happened. So it's very much about setting up a place to work on transformation in the future. So I think in that sense it's very tied, at least to the title, and I think also to some of the sub-themes within the exhibition. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm glad you're saying that because those are the ideas that we had. So on the one hand, yeah, we wanted to Yeah, I think it also has to do with this laboratory of the future. Like the construction site, we wanted to evoke this thing that's being made. And we also wanted to evoke the fast-paced and speculative nature of common building in Canada. So this structure here is built using the same technological system as all Canadian houses. So all Canadian houses are made with this stud frame construction. And so we use this very quotidian, everyday set of materials to inhabit the space, and we also didn't finish it on purpose in order to evoke the rapid process of construction, but also the unfinished nature of the laboratory. The pavilion works as a set of layers where we have the problem on the outside, and then we have a panorama of the nation with these 10 demand banners showing some kind of possible future that's different at the farthest layer. I think the pavilion is quite an amazing building, and one of the things that we love about it is the light and the glazing. So the building is actually very opaque. So the hoarding creates a certain kind of transparency to that opacity, but it also it hides everything except the glass. So it kind of highlights the transparency of the glass in the building. And by building this mezzanine, suddenly there's something to see in the glass above the wall. But we also see the courtyard as a kind of kaleidoscopic viewing machine, you know, where with the geometry of the pavilion, you have these kind of glimpses through into the pavilion in all these different directions at the panorama of the nation. So there's a kind of layering that we're trying to augment the existing building with the layers of the pavilion. And the courtyard, which is usually just a barren set of gravel, we turned into a lush garden, which is modeled on an Indigenous barricade. The garden is part of the land back demand, and it's designed by Patrick Stewart, who's a Niska architect. But the barricade is very much a part of the way that land back is fought for within Canada. So the garden represents the barricade, but it also is filled with plants from the Pacific Northwest, where Patrick Stewart's homeland is, in Niska territory. So we have Western red cedar, Nootka cypress, and Oregon grape, wild rose, and honeysuckle, which are all plants that are actually grown in Italy, but are either they or similar forms are native to the Pacific Northwest.
So the Patrick Stewart, who is on the team for the Land Back team, is also one of the curators of the pavilion, part of the organizing committee. And so Patrick has been part of these conversations from the beginning, and he formed his team with Chief Ian Campbell, who's also been here performing with his family songs for the pavilion, part of the ceremony. And they really landed on their demand rather quickly because they know that land back is something that's really critical to the future of land relations in Canada. That's something that's not at all surprising that they would want to really push that forward. I think what they've done with their demand and what they've done here in the pavilion is they've made it really accessible. Because what they're simply asking for is that Crown land in Canada be returned to be Indigenous land in Canada, and that would be set up as co-managed or co-owned trusts, land trusts. That would be the kind of mechanism to make that happen. So they've done in their team, they did a lot of mapping to try and understand exactly how the ways that we understand property ownership are not nearly as simple as you might imagine. It's not simply just you have title to land and it's yours and you can do whatever you want with it then. The way that it happens on Crown land is kind of divided up into all the different forms of land use that can be leased out by the federal government to different private companies for mining, water rights, all kinds of things. And Indigenous people know this because they've been dealing with this for a very long time, trying to get fishing rights or hunting rights, gathering rights from the government. So this is a conversation that they are very, very well versed in, that they are quite expert in, that they know how this works. And they've brought their campaign here to Venice and the pavilion simply to kind of push again to say we need land back, and the form of land back we're asking for is that Crown land be returned as Indigenous land.